right? Like I only have 24 hours, so something has to be eliminated. I can't do it all, but if I want to do what I need to do, something has to change. Where do we start, Noderea?
Self-awareness is the first thing that came to my mind. Okay. As you're saying, as I get older, right, I realize we all have to get to know who we are as we're growing, become aware of yourself, what works for you, what doesn't. And that's not always easy, right? But the more insight that we have on ourselves, we'll be able to say, look, this is who I am. This is what I want. This is what I'm good at. This is where I need support, right? I think that that's a part of it.
Welcome back to another episode of the CVMK Show, because it is what it is. I'm your host, Stephen K33 himself, Mr. Stephen K. If you want to know what that stands for, it's my initials. That's why everybody keeps asking. It's Cody Vernon Marshall Kelly, but that's a long way, and we could have just said CVMK and could have been on to the next subject. So thank you so much for tuning in. Look, we have an amazing episode. First of all, I think it's always appropriate to create something that will inspire, that will help, that will unpack a lot and deal with some sensitive issues, because I'm really in the business of it, help. If you do not harm, right? It's kind of my motto. If you can't help, just don't harm, right? I'm not saying be passive and whatever, but I'm saying that there's a lot of crap out here. Don't be another person that adds to that. So we're going to deal with self-sabotage, right? We're going to deal with not feeling adequate and you being the reason for things not going forward. How can positive things manifest themselves in your life if you're the reason for the lack of manifestation? So I brought back a subject matter guru, a professional in this, because I don't know what the heck. I'm doing over here. I'm just a podcast host that owns a fitness line and other things. But anyway, so y'all, the CVMK family, welcome to the show. Noderea John. Noderea, how are you doing today?
I am good, and I'm happy to be back. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. Look, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for agreeing to be back on the show. I'm glad I didn't scare you off the last time. So it's always a pleasure to have you back on. But look, I think sabotage is real. I think self-deletion is a constant threat toward all. I think there are varied cases, and it's like the elephant in the room that nobody wants to discuss. And I think also it's easy to get in this space after there has been a length of time or a span of time of what I would say negative result, right? And that type of weight will make you almost not quit, but kind of be counteractive toward what is beneficial. So obviously you're a therapist. For someone that is in this field and this is your work, how do you see and how do you define self-sabotage?
So I define self-sabotage as behaviors that people engage in that is preventing them or blocking them from reaching the goals that they have for themselves. I think that's the simplest way to put it. This can be unconscious or conscious, right? Because sometimes people are very much aware that I'm engaging in self-sabotage behaviors, but sometimes we're not.
So you mentioned it can be, what is unconscious self-sabotage? I see self-sabotage as being conscious, like I'm deliberately doing it. Is it just like I'm not aware that I'm the reason for it? Like, what is the difference?
Sometimes I think we're not consciously saying to ourselves, hey, I know I want to lose 10 pounds, but I'm about to eat this cake. We're not sitting here thinking that I'm about to destroy my goals by eating this cake. It's just that I want this cake right now. And we're not thinking about our goals in that moment. So we're just doing what we want to do, moving impulsively and just doing what we want without thinking about our goals.
Wow. So, and thinking about our goals, right, and dealing with, our true trajectory, in a sense. What are some of the signs, like precursors, like maybe we're just not aware about, maybe on a very small scale, it's, one too many cheat meals, one too many cookies. But what is like a red flag? Like when you see this, duck?
So some of the signs of self-sabotage are procrastination, perfectionism. Oftentimes when people are aiming for perfection, what happens is they're so busy just focusing on all the details. They never really complete anything, when they talk themselves out of completing it because they don't think they're good enough. They don't think they can ever actually make it perfect. And so perfectionism becomes self-sabotage sometimes, making your decisions based off of your fears rather than your goals. I don't want this to happen, so therefore I'm not going to go after this. I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to go wrong. And so therefore, we're busy focusing on what we don't want rather than what we do want. That becomes self-sabotage, or leads to self-sabotage. Not keeping your promises to yourself, right? We make these promises and say, hey, I'm going to set out and I'm going to do these things. And next thing you know, you forget about it and you're doing something, again, that's counterproductive. That's another sign of self-sabotage, being resistant to change, or creating conflicts in the relationships that you actually say you want. I think that's a big one. A lot of people, they say they want loving relationships. Right. And then you finally find this person and it's almost like they'll say it's too good to be true. Or a lot of times I'll hear clients say, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Life has been so good and this isn't normal. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when the shoe doesn't drop, they do something to drop the shoe. So those are some signs of self-sabotage. And I think also not taking responsibility for your life. That's a big one, right? Blaming everyone else, but not taking responsibility.
So there's a few things that you mentioned. So I want to deal with this first. Procrastination is a huge one, but I think most people say, like, man, I got to stop being late. People associate with being lazy. I need to stop not doing it. I need to just go ahead and do it. The fear, like buyer's remorse, right? But I think something that you brought up that I've never probably heard of is perfection. This constant aim for something that is not a true reality, right?
And you said,
why are we? I mean, is it somebody's fault? Is it somebody to say that's because we marketed this in this way? Why is and maybe, and then this is where it gets loaded, right? First of all, why are we trying? I'm not saying to be good. I'm saying to be perfect. Why are we trying to be perfect?
I think you touched on something where you said, is it marketed that way? I think so, right? I think that when a lot of us, what we know about the world is depicted by what we see in the media. And what we see in the media is often looks perfect. This person with this perfect body, this woman with this perfect hair, this perfect outfit, this perfect car, this perfect house. And so some of us now believe that that's real, right? And then we're aiming for that and striving for that and not realizing that this thing that we see in the magazine, it's been touched and retouched and brushed up and airbrushed and cleaned and tweaked, and her makeup has been done and redone and then, photoshopped. And we're looking for these things that don't exist because we're seeing it there in the media. So for some of us, it's very hard to differentiate what's real and what's not anymore.
So if let's say we bought into this idea of a false narrative or a false truth, right? Like this really isn't, achievable or naturally achievable, depending on what it is. But it's so embedded in our psyches. Like if I don't get this, I'm not worthy. So I listened to a podcast today, and I got to go back and finish it. I was in the middle of a couple meetings, and then I've been listening to this marketing strategy video. So as a leader, a sales strategist, co-founder, CEO, I'm constantly inundating my mind with just a lot, and it's hard to segment stuff. So I'm listening to this podcast. Shout out to Harley Initiated. Had one of my favorite preachers on it, Pastor Maul Bryant. And the question was, there's a lot of toxicity in relationships because sabotage is basically the flavor of the day. And the reason for this is because if somebody does not value or add up to a certain status, whether that's degrees, mostly income earned, the expectation gets lowered and the respect gets destroyed. So the only way out is to cause harm. And that's where the conversation started to go. Mm-hmm. Is that a one-off, or is that a truth that we've created our own failings?
I think there's some truth to that we are, again, determining our worth and other people's worth by what they have. Like you said, the pastor said. And so when we don't see that, okay, you have a bachelor's, so you have a master's, this other person is better, or this person wears this clothes and that clothes, so this other person, wears more expensive stuff, that makes them better, or whatever it is, we're determining our wealth by these things. And I think a lot of times it does ruin relationships when we start to compare. Oh, well, look at this person now, right? The big thing on social media is these grand proposals. Yeah. So he proposed to her like this. Well, I only got this proposal. So he loves her more than he loves me, or, whatever it is. And I think, it does create a lot of conflict. And again, I think I go back to social media. As much as I love social media, I think that we have to be careful with some of these channels that we subscribe to and follow, because some of it creates a very unhealthy, unrealistic goal that we now chase. And again, we don't know how much of it is actually real from how much of it isn't. I know people who will take a vacation, take lots of pictures, and then say, hey, look, I'm at this fancy place today. And next month, go back and post the rest of the trips. As far as the world is concerned, they done took 2 trips. No, that was all done in one day. As a matter of fact, they stayed at a fancy place for the first 2 days of that trip, took a bunch of pictures, and then went and stayed at a regular place that they could really afford, where they didn't take pictures. But what the world thinks is, oh my God, they're always traveling. Look at all these wonderful places they stayed at. You know what I mean? But people are creating this illusion, right. And then other people are breaking their necks to keep up with this thing that doesn't exist. And in the meantime, now this is when we're sabotaging ourselves, because our other goals, we're doing things that are taking us away from the reality of our lives in order to keep up with this thing on social media that doesn't really exist all the time.
That's a lot. We're gonna get into that false reality, because I think we've created what I would call digitally influenced depression, right? And I really want to unpack that. Quick word from our sponsors.
There's a hero in all of us waiting to be unleashed. All it takes is just that one last push. Activate the hero within with CVMK Global Supplements. All natural, steroid-free, designed to enhance performance, build muscle, and increase energy. You are unstoppable. You can do this. Become your own hero at www.cvmkglobal.store.
Y'all go to www.cvmkglobal.store. First of all, the new protein just dropped. The Whey. I have the vegan one transform with me. I will have my The Whey to show off on the next episode. I guarantee you it. But I want you to go there and use code The Whey, 15% off. THEE-WHEY. I can't spell today. I don't know what's going on. The Whey at www.cvmkglobal.store. So, we talk about this digitally influenced depression. I don't think, we know, obviously that social media is creating an adverse effect. It's needed. You can't do anything without it. If you start up a cupcake business, you have to be on social media. If you start a daycare business, if you start a church, there's no entity that can exist without a social media presence, right?
That's the fact.
So it's needed on one hand. On the other hand, it's now has this other side that is transactional, at times toxic. Some might even say perverted. But all of this is going on simultaneously. and it's up to the end user to decide what is real and what's not. Mm-hmm. When can you, or when should I don't know, intervention be made when you can say you're social medially, I don't even know if that's correct, depressed? Like when as a would you do?
So I think, when do we know? The question is, when do you know when you need to lay off of social media, or when should you stop following certain pages on social media? To me, becomes the question. I think if you are spending too much time, and everybody has to figure out what too much time is on social media, you should give yourself a break. If you are spending hours and hours flipping through social media each day, and then you find yourself looking at other areas of your life and saying, I don't have the time for this. I don't have the time for the gym. I don't have time to do that homework assignment. I don't have time to start my business. But you've been spending a lot of time on social media. It's probably a clear-cut sign that it's time to take a step back from social media. Also, I think if you're following pages on social media that when you're done watching this person's post, you feel like your life isn't good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not this enough, you're just not enough, it's probably a sign that you should unfollow that person. I think that's, something to think about. We should be following people that inspire us, that motivate us, that do want us to be better, but not make us feel inadequate. Right? And there's a difference. It's a fine line.
There's a fine line, I think, between a healthy push and a judgment.
Yes, there you go. Mm-hmm. If I was fine with my relationship up until I saw this thing, that's probably a problem, right? If I was fine with my body up until I saw someone else's body, that's probably a problem.
True. Here's where it gets weird is comparison, I think, is the disease. And the symptoms are one of the symptoms of self-sabotage, or it's, like you said, perfection. I think these are all the symptoms, but I think the disease is comparison. The issue with comparison is that everything is built off of it, right? Like the analytics matter. Cash flow matters, capital matters. So like I can't get away from it because my whole life is dictated by comparison, right? How do we start changing the dialogue and shifting away from competition to collaboration?
Right. That's a good question. How do we shift away from competition to collaboration? I think we need to understand our goals. Understanding yourself, focusing primarily on yourself. What is it that I want? What is it that I'm going after? And then figure out, how do I work hand in hand with someone? How do I support someone? How do I allow myself to be supported without feeling like that I need to be competing with this person, with this other thing? As I heard someone say, your only competition should be who you were yesterday. Right? Not who this other person is or who this other company is. There's nothing wrong with looking at people who have similar businesses and similar goals and saying, hey, how are they doing it? What's actually working for them? I think that's important to look at. Right? If I have a therapy business, if I want to be a millionaire one day through my therapy business, and I am seeing other people who have similar therapy practices and they've already hit that goal and beyond, you're damn right. I'm going to watch what they're doing and I'm going to say, hey, this was their steps to success. I'm going to follow some of those steps. I don't think that that's me competing. I think that's me learning and taking a page out their book, which I think is smart, right? Why reinvent the wheel?
It's true. That's true.
Right, so.
Learn how to, let's say, don't reinvent the wheel, learn how to fly, right? So, so that's neat. So I think it's using it in a healthy way to sharpen our process. I think is totally fine.
There you go. Asking for help, right? So at that point, it's not a competition. It's, hey, can I be supported here?
The other thing I think is, how can we connect the ecosystems? And, one of the challenges with anything is everything seems to be a separate entity yet have overlap, right? So it's like, oh man, this, therapy is a separate thing. How do I get involved? What channels, how do I know this is good? You know what? I'm gonna just listen to, this influencer on YouTube and get my advice from there, right? And it's like, I'm not mad at it. I wouldn't necessarily subscribe pseudo wisdom as the primary course, but it's done because convenience to me. I always say, like, what did Chris Rock said? He's like, it just depends on your options. Convenience is really the culprit here. How can we make the channel of proper aid more convenient?
How can we make the channel of, say it again?
Yeah, like proper aid more convenient. Like, how do we, should entities, should businesses upon whatever a threshold, an economic number, you have to have, like, I would say this, like
the ecosystem, you mentioned that. So like the ecosystem for self-improvement, what would that even look like? Or healing,
right?
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that, and I think you touched on it as you were asking the question, you were answering it. We have to stop looking at things individually and look at everything in its entirety. If I want to really look at the ecosystem for healing and what that really looks like, I need to look at mental health, the person's mental health, their physical health, their environment, their community, the resources within the community, their nutrition, how well the people around them are educated on these subject matters, and look at the healthcare system. Just look at everything on the whole and say, hey, this is the entire system here. How do all of these things work together? Like, when we go to the doctor, we have heart doctors, we have, foot doctors, we have brain doctors, we have different doctors that take care of different areas of the body.
Right.
The problem is that your heart doctor might be telling you, hey, this is good for that. And then your foot doctor is telling you, hey, that's good for that. And then the other doctor tells you, hey, this is good for that. When we can have all the doctors come together and say, okay, this is what this person is going through. This is what Noderea is going through. She has this heart problem, this foot problem, and this knee problem. How do we come together and make sure that the advice that we're giving her is not hurting the other areas of her body? You know what I mean? Like, how can we all come together? But I think because everything is so separated, you have your mental health provider, your physical health provider, your, the healthcare system, just all these different systems that are not working together to help us on the whole. Right. It's just not this collaborative approach.
No, well said.
So I think there needs to be more communication in between the systems.
Well said. I like that. There's definitely not a collaborative approach. There is no communication within the system. Yeah. And I brought up the reference with, Chris Rock, because I think what ends up happening is when there isn't collaboration and an actual standard of truth, there's no commitment to any particular system, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm getting therapy advice from my barber. Right. And then when we talk about the BIPOC community, traditionally that's how it's handled, right? I'm getting health advice, from a unlicensed medical practitioner, and you're taking, your grandma's old therapies for stuff that is like, hey, is that even legal to consume? So it's a very convoluted system, and we're gonna break it down because we're gonna talk about how can we get back on track. Quick word from my sponsors.
I literally just tried the best pre-workout on the planet. With Superpower pre-workout, you have increased focus and a power boost every single time you work out. It's not only packed with 225 milligrams of caffeine, but it also has citrulline and creatine. It's insane how much energy and focus I had during my workouts. If you're ready to take your workouts to the next level, then ditch your current pre-workout and get the Superpower pre-workout to be your own hero.
All right, y'all. Yeah. www.cbmkglobal.store. Get it today. Superpower's out. Or if you're like me, you need a more chilled pre-workout, you got Warrior Thirst. Either one will do. Warrior Thirst or Superpower. So when we're talking about alignment, creating what I would say a net positive balance, right? Where do we start, right? Like, so something I've been noticing as I age, elimination is just as valuable as addition, right? Like I only have 24 hours, so something has to be eliminated. I can't do it all, but if I want to do what I need to do, something has to change. Where do we start, Noderea?
Self-awareness is the first thing that came to my mind. Okay. As you're saying, as I get older, right, I realize we all have to get to know who we are as we're growing, become aware of yourself, what works for you, what doesn't. And that's not always easy, right? But the more insight that we have on ourselves, we'll be able to say, look, this is who I am. This is what I want. This is what I'm good at. This is where I need support. Right? I think that that's a part of it. How do we gain self-awareness? Of course, I'm a big advocate for therapy. So I'll say working with a therapist is a way to gain some self-awareness. When you go to therapy, it's one of the only relationships that you'll have where you are speaking to someone just focusing on yourself and no one else. And you're talking about yourself, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm going through, this is what I want. Someone's reflecting back to you about how you're showing up, how you're taking care of yourself, and you really get to focus on yourself. Another thing that I would say is journal writing is another great way to develop some self-awareness. When you're journaling, if you are able to be honest and transparent, when you reflect on your journal entries, you're going to be able to see some things about yourself that you didn't even know was present. Right? You look back and it's just like, wow, I didn't even realize that I felt that way. I didn't realize that all of this was going to come up. And so you're able to now learn some things about yourself. We need to also put a plan in place. Right? I'm working towards these things. What are the actual steps that I'm taking here? What is the commitment that I'm going to make to myself to get to where I say I want to be? And we need to take action. So again, I think self-awareness, journal writing, creating some sort of a plan for yourself and taking the action steps towards the life that you say you want is all a part of it.
I like that. I think that the journal writing about the journey, it's a practice that I think definitely, I mean, all of it needs to be implemented, but I think also taking the time to write out your thoughts, write out what you're feeling in that exact moment, just for you, right? And in your space and clarity. What do you say to, I think self-medication is on the rise, unfortunately. But it's not one thing. And I think the caveat is people only think self-medication as an abuse of this. I think sometimes even the most positive outlets can be overly self-medicating, right? Like eventually, it's like taking an antibiotic. If you keep taking it, it loses its effect. It's supposed to do a job, and then there's supposed to be processes after that. If someone is going down this route, how do you address that type of addiction, whatever it is?
If someone is going down the route of self-medicating, if it's a maladaptive self-medication, they're going to be able to see eventually that this is not working for them. And so I would encourage someone to try to find some healthy coping skills that they can say, okay, I'm going to let go of this self-medicating because it's not serving me. For example, a lot of people tend to self-medicate with marijuana. That's the biggest one that I think of when I think of self-medication. And, of course, people are going to argue. Some people say marijuana is not that bad for you. Some people say it is. Marijuana has, I'm sure, its pros, but it also has its cons. And so to be able to look at it and say, hey, these are the pros, these are the cons. I don't want this in my life right now, or I don't want it as much. What else can I do for myself instead of having to turn to marijuana all the time? What can I do instead? Because at the end of the day, we have to look at, why are you self-medicating? More than likely when people are self-medicating, they're trying to avoid something. They're usually trying to avoid some sort of feeling that's coming up for them. Like a lot of people, they'll say to me, I'm having difficulty relaxing. I'm having difficulty just settling my body down. So I need to smoke at nighttime, else I can't sleep. I can't relax. Well, let's start dealing with what's really going on. When you don't smoke, what is happening? Why can't you relax? Well, usually these thoughts are showing up for me. I can't stop thinking about X. Well, how about you start journal writing at nighttime? Instead of just keeping all these thoughts running in your mind at nighttime before going to bed, add journal writing to your routine. Write the things that are going through your mind. Create a healthy bedtime routine and see if you can then get into the habit of clearing your mind and helping your body settle down before you go to bed. And maybe you won't be so dependent on marijuana.
I like it. Like, I got a final thought, and leave it after this break. And it better play this time. Yo, what's up? It's your boy CVMK33. Look, you're watching the CVMK show, the Cody Bernard Marshall show, because it is what it is. So what you waiting on? Subscribe, share, like, comment, or whatever you do. Stay tuned. CVMK show. Y'all, look, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe over here on YouTube, CVMK, hit share, notification bell, like, comment. You can do more than smoke weed, whether you agree with it or not. That's for another episode of another day. I'm not. Marijuana deserves its own episode.
Absolutely, agreed.
But but I absolutely agree with you. One of the things that I have entered into is I do not judge what I do not know. I'm not saying that my stance changes. I'm saying that my position does, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I can still look forward, right? But now I'm forward with my arms open, right? And I think that's where we have to move to in a society, because there's a lot, and I think people are dealing with a lot. And I don't want anyone to feel like I'm the worst thing in the world, because you're not. Right? Mm-hmm. If you believe like I believe that we're all God's children, there is a saving grace that is needed for all of us, and it's all of us can obtain it. Right. So, that's why we do this thing, and that's why we have the CVMK show. So, Noderea, you have been an absolutely fantastic guest, and your insight and value and talent is needed, and it's helping so many people. We want people to be helped, right? We want people to be positively influenced. We know you have a social media account. We know you just put out a book, right? Give us the information so they out there, whoever they are, can say, hey, look, I need to follow Noderea. I need to purchase the book. Maybe I don't live in the area, but maybe I can get in contact. I'm sure there's digital remote, counseling sessions, and I need to be a part of the Northnodetherapy.
Yes. So yes, you guys can follow my Instagram page at Northnodetherapy. I also have a TikTok page for Northnodetherapy, and my website is www.northnodetherapy.com. I do have a journal. It is Creating Change, a guided wellness journal, and it's actually great for working on self-sabotaging behaviors as well as self-love and self-awareness. So this journal, it is a book of tools. It has stuff like personalized coping plans, adult coloring pages, positive affirmations, feelings inventory. It's a lot of tools that I help my clients with during my practice that I put together and put in this journal so that people can work on themselves at home when they're not in sessions. And so a lot of my clients have found it very, very helpful. So definitely you can check it out at ccguidedjournal.com. Once again, ccguidedjournal.com. That's where you can find the journal, and if they want to call, the phone number is 929-366-7302.
Y'all, hit her up on TikTok. I know you guys are on there because you send me the dumbest videos, and you guys make some videos that, I just be like, hey, whatever, Hit her up on the gram, follow her, but go to ccguidedjournal.com. Purchase the journal. Begin your healing today. She's a great person, putting out great material. you got to connect with her. And if y'all want to keep seeing amazing leaders, amazing influencers like we have on today, you know what you got to do. YouTube, CVMK, subscribe, hit share, like the notification bell. Instagram, it is what it is _show. I know you're probably like, but it is what it is _show on the ground, but the CVMK, it's the same person, y'all. I had to change it because Mason Cameron took the copyright to my other thing and I should legalize it first. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. CVMK _global with the fitness page, www.cvmkglobal.store where the supplements are and the apparel, and CVMK33 where it goes down. And until next time, guys, thanks.
If you think exercise alone got me looking like this, well, think again. CVMK Global Super Thick got me right. I'm obsessed, and yeah, I won't stop talking about it because it helped me grow in all the right places. Its creatine provides a fast and reliable way to increase your power, size, and shape, and it's scientifically proven to help you reach your physical goals in a safe, controlled manner. So if you want to increase muscle size, pump, and thickness in your muscle groups, you need Super Thick.